All right, so are you ready to dive into some serious international drama?
Always up for a bit of that.
Today we're looking at some UK government files that were just declassified.
Oh, cool.
They reveal this pretty fascinating story about betrayal and political maneuvering.
It's juicy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, there's even a little bit of Italian flair thrown in.
All right, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. We've got diplomatic cables and private conversations, even some, newspaper clippings.
Whoa.
And our mission today is to try to understand how just, personal relationships can really shake up international politics.
Yeah, it's so easy to think about diplomacy as just being about, treaties and these big fancy summits.
Right.
But these files really show, how much individual personalities and even just emotions can play a huge role in shaping, global events.
It's true. It's like the human element of these, stiff, situations.
Exactly.
So picture this. It's 2004.
Okay.
Tony Blair is Prime Minister of the UK.
Right. And he's trying to kind of strengthen ties with France and Germany. They decide to have this trilateral summit in Berlin.
Okay.
Basically a high-level meeting to discuss, the future of the EU.
I see.
But there's one key player who is missing from this little power trio.
Uh-oh.
Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi.
Oh, wow.
And Berlusconi was not happy about being left out in the cold.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, these trilateral meetings were seen as, hugely influential.
For sure.
A chance for those three countries to just, set the agenda for the whole EU.
Absolutely.
So to be excluded meant that Italy was potentially losing its voice at the top table.
Yeah, basically. I can imagine Berlusconi was, fuming.
Yeah.
What was his reaction when he found out he wasn't invited?
The files describe him as feeling like a jilted lover.
Oh, my gosh.
Which, I mean, that's pretty dramatic.
That is.
Right.
Yeah, but knowing, Berlusconi's personality kind of fits.
Yeah.
He was. I mean, he was known for being pretty flamboyant.
Totally.
A little larger than life.
Absolutely. He cultivated that image.
Yeah.
And this whole jilted lover analogy played right into it.
Oh, for sure.
It also resonated with the Italian public.
Yeah.
It fed into this narrative of Italy being overlooked and disrespected by its European partners.
Right.
But beyond, the hurt pride, this snub also tapped into some real political anxieties for Berlusconi.
Okay, so there's more to this than just, bruised egos.
Yeah.
What were the deeper political concerns at play here?
Well, remember, this is just a few years after the Iraq War.
Right.
Which had deeply divided Europe.
Yeah.
Berlusconi had been a staunch supporter of the war.
Yeah.
Siding with Blair and the U.S.
Right.
While France and Germany had vehemently opposed it.
Totally.
So being excluded from these talks felt like a double betrayal to Berlusconi.
Oh, wow. So he's thinking hey, I stood by you on Iraq.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is how you repay me. Ouch.
Yeah.
That's gotta sting.
It really did. And it made him look politically isolated.
Right.
Especially within the EU.
Yeah.
And it raised all these questions about whether his gamble on supporting this unpopular war had backfired.
Right.
It made his pro-U.S. stance seem even more costly.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't considered that angle.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just about being left out of a meeting.
Right.
It was about Italy's position in the world.
Yeah.
And the potential consequences of Berlusconi's foreign policy choices.
Precisely. This incident really highlighted the tightrope that Berlusconi was trying to walk.
Yeah.
Between maintaining strong ties with the U.S. and navigating these complex power dynamics within the EU.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of complex dynamics, I hear there's a rugby game involved in all of this.
There is.
That's not something you usually see in diplomatic files.
Right. It's this interesting little detail that adds a bit of color to the story.
Yeah.
On the same day as all this diplomatic drama is unfolding, there's a rugby match between Italy and England.
Oh, wow.
England ends up crushing Italy.
Oof.
And the UK ambassador in Rome reports back that Berlusconi, already fuming about the Berlin summit, is in a particularly foul mood.
Oh, I bet. So the rugby loss, while probably insignificant on its own, became symbolic of this larger sense of Italian frustration.
Exactly. It just fed into this whole narrative
of
Italy being sidelined and defeated, both diplomatically and now on the sporting field.
Right. Okay, so we've got hurt feelings, political anxieties, and even a rugby match thrown in the mix.
Right.
This is shaping up to be quite the diplomatic soap opera.
And wait till you hear about President Bush's reaction.
There's more.
So it seems the news of Berlusconi's exclusion even reached the White House.
Oh, wow.
And during a phone call with Blair, Bush jokingly expresses concern about Berlusconi being left out.
He did.
Yeah.
Wow. So this wasn't just a minor disagreement behind closed doors.
No.
This was causing ripples across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So what did Blair do to try and smooth things over?
Well, he knew he had to act quickly.
Yeah.
He sent a special advisor to Rome.
Okay.
To kind of pour oil on troubled waters.
Yeah.
And get a sense of just how upset Berlusconi really was.
Right.
And Blair's advisor quickly realizes that Berlusconi's hurt feelings were very real.
Oh, yeah.
And that the Italian press was like having a field day with this whole incident.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, they were portraying it as like this major diplomatic blunder.
Yeah.
You know, a sign of Italy's waning influence within the EU.
Right. So not only was Berlusconi feeling snubbed,
right,
but this whole thing was turning into like a political headache for him back home.
Exactly.
I bet that added fuel to the fire.
It definitely did. And Berlusconi, never one to back down from a fight,
right,
decides to use this opportunity to kind of put some pressure on Blair.
Okay.
So he threatens to challenge Britain's EU rebate at every opportunity.
Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. I need a little EU politics 101 here.
Yeah.
What exactly is this rebate, and why was it such a big deal?
Okay, so it is a bit complicated, but essentially the UK rebate is this special discount that the UK gets on its annual contributions to the EU budget.
I see.
It was negotiated back in the 1980s.
Okay.
And it's been this point of contention ever since.
Yeah.
With some countries arguing that it's unfair.
Right. So Berlusconi's basically saying, like, if you're going to exclude me from these important discussions, I'm going to make your life difficult on other issues.
Exactly.
That's pretty savvy, even if it's a bit petty.
It's definitely a power play.
Yeah.
Berlusconi was demonstrating that he still had leverage and that he wasn't going to be easily sidelined.
Right.
And this threat really highlighted how interconnected EU politics is.
Yeah.
Everything's ultimately linked to these budget negotiations.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like Blair had a real mess on his hands.
He did.
How did he respond to Berlusconi's threat?
Well, publicly, he kind of downplayed the whole incident, insisting that the relationship with Italy was still strong.
Right.
But privately, he was scrambling to contain the damage.
Yeah.
He even travels to Rome for a face-to-face meeting with Berlusconi.
Oh, wow.
Which is a clear sign that he was taking this seriously.
Yeah, like a personal touch.
Yeah.
So Blair's trying to smooth things over with this, like, personal touch. Did it work?
Yeah. Did Berlusconi calm down?
Yeah.
Not exactly. Just when it seemed like the situation was starting to de-escalate, something else happens that throws everything into chaos.
Oh, no.
What now? Okay, so an Italian newspaper publishes this front-page story. Claiming that there was going to be a second trilateral meeting.
Oh, wow.
This time in London.
Okay.
And guess who wasn't invited?
Berlusconi, I presume.
You got it. And the article even featured this, like, cartoon.
Oh, my gosh.
Mocking Italy's lack of influence in Europe.
Oh, wow.
It was a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
But Berlusconi believed it.
He did.
He calls Blair, practically in tears.
Oh, geez.
Saying the article had destroyed his foreign policy achievements.
Wow. So this incident wasn't just about the initial snub anymore.
Yeah.
It had become like a symbol of Italy's perceived weakness.
Yeah.
And it was hitting Berlusconi right where it hurt, his ego.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it shows how the media can play such a powerful role.
Oh, yeah.
In shaping perceptions.
For sure.
And even influencing diplomatic events.
Yeah.
This wasn't some obscure blog post. This was a major national newspaper.
Yeah.
And Berlusconi clearly felt the sting of public humiliation.
So Blair is now dealing with like a full-blown diplomatic crisis.
Yeah.
All because of a fake news story.
Right.
What did he do?
He had to do some serious damage control.
Yeah.
And fast. So he assures Berlusconi that the story was completely false and that there was no second meeting planned.
Okay.
He even promises to have the UK ambassador in Rome contact the newspaper to try and, like, set the record straight.
I imagine Blair was kicking himself for not being more careful about managing Berlusconi's ego in the first place.
Right.
What a headache.
It definitely highlights the importance of personal relationships in diplomacy.
Yeah.
You know, Blair might have thought he was just focusing on the big players.
Yeah.
France and Germany.
Right.
But neglecting those personal dynamics with other EU leaders like Berlusconi backfired spectacularly.
This whole episode's been a roller coaster.
It has.
So after all this drama, what was the ultimate outcome?
Yeah.
Did Blair manage to repair the relationship with Berlusconi?
Well...
Or did this incident leave a lasting scar?
The relationship was definitely strained.
Yeah.
Berlusconi continued to kind of hold a grudge. And this incident likely contributed to this, like, sense of distrust between the two leaders.
It sounds like Blair learned a valuable, albeit painful, lesson about the importance of managing egos and personal sensitivities in international diplomacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a reminder that diplomacy isn't just about negotiating treaties.
Right.
It's about building relationships, understanding personalities, and anticipating potential reactions.
Right.
Sometimes a perceived slight can be just as damaging
for sure
as a concrete policy disagreement.
It's amazing to see how these personal dynamics can play out on the world stage with real consequences for international relations.
Absolutely.
It really humanizes these figures we often see as like larger-than-life political players.
Yeah, it really does. It really reminds us that, you know, these aren't just these abstract political entities moving across a chessboard.
Right.
They're human beings. With their own ambitions and insecurities. And yes, even egos.
Totally. It's like we've been given this like backstage pass to the world of international diplomacy. And we've seen firsthand that sometimes these personal dramas can have just as much impact as the big policy debates.
Absolutely. And what's so fascinating is we see this pattern repeat itself throughout history. You know, personal relationships between leaders can shape alliances, spark conflicts, and even influence the course of wars.
It makes you wonder, like, how many other diplomatic incidents have shaped by these kinds of personal dynamics, things we might never even know about because they happen behind closed doors.
Right. And it really underscores the importance of understanding the individual personalities and motivations of world leaders. After all, these are the individuals making decisions that affect millions of lives. And their relationships can have these far-reaching consequences.
So zooming out from this particular episode, what are the broader takeaways here? What can we learn from this whole Berlusconi-Blair drama?
Well, I think one of the key takeaways is just the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership. Especially on the global stage. Leaders need to be aware of not only their own emotions, but also the emotions of those they're dealing with. You know, misreading or dismissing those emotions can lead to misunderstandings, resentment, and ultimately, like political fallout.
It's a reminder that diplomacy isn't just about like policy papers and formal agreements. It's about building trust and understanding different perspectives and navigating these like complex personal relationships.
Exactly. And it highlights the fact that even in this seemingly rational world of international politics, the personal can be profoundly political.
Yeah, for sure. So to wrap up our deep dive into this fascinating diplomatic drama, here's a final thought-provoking question for you to consider. Knowing what we now know about Berlusconi's personality and his political goals, could Blair have approached this situation differently? Could he have achieved his goal of closer ties with France and Germany without alienating Italy? Or was some degree of friction just inevitable?
That's a great question. And one that historians and political scientists continue to debate. Perhaps with a bit more finesse. Blair could have found a way to acknowledge Italy's importance. And make Berlusconi feel like he was still part of the inner circle. But managing those egos and balancing those competing interests is a delicate dance. There's no easy answer.
That is food for thought. It just goes to show that, you know, the world of international politics is rarely black and white. It's full of nuance and personality clashes.
For sure.
And unexpected consequences.
It certainly is. And that's what makes it so fascinating to study.
It really is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another exploration of the world around us.